So now for part 2 of Welcome to a Career in Real Estate. On page 15, you begin your career in real estate as a home finder. Now, you've been successfully through the practical exam and undertaken part 1 of this program. Now you're employed in a real estate agency. You're working as a home finder, which might be for 3 months while you're undergoing a trial to see if you're suitable for a career in sales, or you might be working as a home finder on a full-time basis. But whichever the case, part 2 of this seminar is for you. Now let's look on page 16 at the role of a home finder. Now this manual and the accompanying audio program describes the duties required of a person filling the role of a home finder in an agency that uses the Real Estate Agency Management Program. Now the definition of a home finder is a person who uses the actions that lead to the location and listing of sellers which lead to sales for the agency. The home finder is a sales creator. So as a result of having you as a home finder in one of our agencies, sales are going to be created directly as a result of your efforts. Now, a home finder has one duty only. That is to find people who are selling now, if you can write that in, and then pass those leads to winners on the agency's sales team. Now, that's it. You do nothing else. You're not a part-time receptionist, you're not the office gopher or the errand person. Find people who are selling now and give those leads to winning salespeople to list. That's your job as a home finder. Now, this selling now, I'm going to talk to you a bit more about this. Now, often we find when a home finder first starts in a real estate agency, they tend to just go out and almost it's like selling the appointment instead of finding out who is selling now. So what they do is they go out and they it's very easy to sell an appointment. If you spoke to 100 sellers and you asked the question, would you like a free market appraisal? You would, so if you asked that question of 100 homeowners, you'd probably get 20 people that would take you up on the offer. But how many listings would you get? And the answer is possibly none. So the job of a home finder is not to sell an appointment. By definition, when you're talking to people, you will find people who are selling further down the track. But every day that you're working in your agency as a home finder, your job is to find one person who is selling now or will sell now and pass that lead to a winner on the agency's team. That's the role. Very, very clear and very, very simple. Now, some comments on the role on page 17. The role of the home finder is one of the most important roles in an agency that uses our program. It's a tough and demanding role, one that requires discipline and focus. It's not easy. It's one of the toughest roles in a real estate office. But it's also rewarding. A good home finder can become a good salesperson down the track and perhaps even a good sales controller one day. The Real Estate Agency Management Program favours people with no experience. We have the skills, the experience and the success to be able to teach new people how to succeed. So a person wishing to enter real estate under our program must begin their career as a home finder. And when they've demonstrated a record of success, they may then apply to join the agency sales team. And I'm going to get you to highlight when they've demonstrated a record of success. Okay, so this isn't just 3 months on trial and then you automatically become a salesperson. You have to prove yourself to be competent. Otherwise, there's no moving on to sales. Now let's look at your future on page 18. At this stage, you've read the booklet, Consider a Career in Real Estate, and studied the programs Beginner to Winner and Winning Ways. You'll have passed a written exam and a practical evaluation. You're ready to enter what's now known as the trial stage. Now before you commence, you're going to meet one of the team at the Pittard Training Group. You'll become more aware of our customer care and results-focused philosophies. As a new member of a team using the Real Estate Agency Management Program, your manager has most likely selected you from dozens, even hundreds of applicants, so you're very important to the agency. Your manager is committed to following the program. We trust that you'll return this commitment by following the Home Finder program, which is Welcome to a Career in Real Estate. So we wish you all the luck in the world. Now on page 19, the purpose of part 2 of Welcome to a Career in Real Estate, this is a prospecting program for new recruits, for home finders, and for salespeople in a slump. So that is for a person who has just started in the agency for the first time on trial, or for somebody who might be working full-time as a home finder, or for salespeople who are in a performance slump. The reason a salesperson gets into a performance slump is often because they haven't spoken to enough people. They haven't done enough prospecting. And the root cause of a lot of performance slumps comes down to the fact that we haven't, as a salesperson, spoken to enough people. So we have to make sure that we do that every day, speak to lots and lots of people. Now in the following pages you'll be given clear instructions on how to succeed as a home finder or how to get out of a slump if you're a salesperson whose results are poor. Some home finders, as I've mentioned, have been employed to perform this role for the long term. Some are already working towards being in sales. It doesn't matter. The thing is that while you're working as a home finder, you must speak to 103 potential sellers every working day. So if you can write in 103, write that as big as you can. Potential sellers every working day. Now, when you move into sales, you've got sellers contacting you. You've got to work with buyers. You've got all sorts of inquiry that's coming your way, and you've got to fit in some prospecting as well. But when you were a full-time home finder, that is, when your only job is to prospect for new business, what excuse can there be for not speaking to 103 people every day? Really, you start early, you start at 9 o'clock, and you keep working until you've spoken to 103 people. That's the job, 103 people every working day. You do this and you'll be the person who'll provide your team with listings. Listings that come as a direct consequence of your actions. Now, for salespeople in a performance slump, you're in a slump because you have not spoken to sufficient potential sellers each working day. Either that or your prospecting presentation is inadequate. Either way, your performance will improve if you commit to using proven prospecting scripts, and this is on page 20, speak with 40 potential sellers every working day. So while you're a home finder, you speak to 103 people every working day. When you're a salesperson working in the field, you speak to 40 potential sellers, as well as all the other work that you do, 40 potential sellers every working day. Prospecting is to salespeople what school is to university students. If you want to get great results at university, get a good foundation education at high school. If you want a winning sales career, prospect every day. Sales is a people business, so if you won't speak to people, this isn't the career for you. Now, if you've got any questions, speak to your leader, and once you've joined the winner's circle, call the hotline. Now, the first step is know exactly how your agency operates. Understand what a salesperson in real estate should do. Understand what winners who follow the same programs as those being taught to you are achieving. Compare this to the rest of the industry and you'll know that you now belong to a very special group of people. You'll be a huge asset to your sales team. A real estate salesperson has two main aims. One is obtain listings. Now this means, of course, that we're chosen by the seller to be the agent who handles the sale of their property. At your agency, there's a huge focus on serving your clients. There's a huge focus on listings. Now the next thing we need to do is make sales. This means finding a buyer for a client's property at the highest possible price. So our job is to list properties, to convince sellers to list their properties with us, and our job is to make sure that we then get those properties sold at a price that makes our sellers happy. Now the second step is to know exactly how your role operates. You must know your duties. Now this is an overview of the home finder duties. First of all, find sellers. Have their details entered into the company's database, but keep your 3x5 card records for you to use when personally following up these clients. The second thing we do is find immediate sellers and introduce them to a winning salesperson. And if you can highlight somebody who is capable of turning the lead into a listing. So we've got to hand leads over to people who can turn the lead into a listing. You waste your time if you give leads to people who aren't skillful enough to turn them into business. The team will look at the month's listings and see that many resulted from your leads. Now, how do you measure your success as a home finder? You speak to 103 people every working day. If you do this, you'll be responsible for at least 10 listings per month. 10 listings per month. And if you can highlight, there's no excuse for you not to be responsible for at least 10 listings a month working as a home finder. Let's put this another way. If you spoke to 103 people every day, would you be responsible for at least a listing every 2 days? Would you? Every 2 days. So if you spoke to 103 people a day, you might not get a lead today, but tomorrow you would, a lead that would turn into a listing. So there's no doubt that if you spoke to 206 people over 2 days, that there would have to be one listing that would come from that. Now, if there's not, you're in the wrong game. This is not for you. Either that, or you're handing leads over to people who are incapable of turning it into business. But let's assume that you've got winners on your team that you're working with, and you will have winners on the team that you're working with. So you hand the lead over to a winner, and a winner turns it into a listing. If you spoke to 103 people every working day, you would have to agree that you would at least be responsible for one listing every 2 days, correct? Now you work roughly 23 days in a month. So this means that 10 is conservative. 10 is conservative, provided you speak to the amount of people that you've been instructed to speak to, and as a home finder, that's 103 people. If you fall below that number, our advice in the Pittard Training Group to your leader would be not to keep you, because you're not doing what you're paid to do. So if you speak to 103 people every day, we have to say that you would get a listing at least every 2 days. There's 10, 11 or 12 listings a month that would be we could directly link to your efforts. And that's why you're there when you're working as a home finder. So there's no excuse for you not to be responsible for at least 10 listings a month. That's it. That's all you do, nothing else. You can speak to buyers, but your only purpose for speaking with buyers is to see if they first have a property to sell. Your only mission, if you can write that in, is to find people with properties to sell. That's all you'd have to do. Now, it's a very simple job description, isn't it? There's no mixing this up. Wake up every day, go to the office, find a listing every day. Find somebody who wants to sell, somebody who's selling now. Speak to 103 people every day and do it enthusiastically. And you will be a valuable asset to the team. Now, we have in the office something that we call the control board, and this is explained on page 24. The control board is the pulse of the agency. Now, on the control board, you'll see information that tells you how the team is functioning. Now, sometimes the team will be ahead of its targets, sometimes they'll be behind, sometimes they'll be struggling. Now, you'll notice that the mood of your team can be directly linked to the control board. A salesperson who is behind target is generally not a happy person. If they are happy, something is wrong with them. Okay, so you'll find that the mood is directly linked to the control board. One section of the control board that is of vital concern to you, the listing results in relation to the listing targets. So the listing results in relation to the listing targets. Now, if you have 3 or more people on your team, you'll hear an expression that relates to listings. The number of listings must always exceed the date. That means on the 20th of the month, we've got to have 20 listings or more. On the 21st, we should have 21 listings. We should have a listing coming in every day. Now, regardless of the numbers of sales or whatever else is happening, you must always be thinking, where can I find another listing? And I want you to write in, where can I find another listing? And I want you to circle it. Because whether you're a salesperson or whether you're a home finder, that is a good thing to keep in mind. Would you agree? Now, the third step is know exactly how your role does not operate. This is a section on what not to do. Your greatest danger is distractions. Now, distractions can be an instant killer of your success, and it'll attack you in many forms. The biggest way that these distractions will attack you is that you'll be doing what we call PTBB. You'll be pretending to be busy. You'll get involved in a whole lot of activities, none of which leads to results for your team. This is where we hark back to your job description as a home finder. The job is to simply speak to 103 people every day, to be responsible for at least 10 listings a month for your team. That's it. So if you're clearing a jam in the office's photocopier and you're behind target, that is your fault. And that is something for which you'll be held accountable. Now, there's a saying that says no one is busier than a person who has nothing to do. You'll see people working feverishly, but there's often no results to show for all this activity. It can only mean that the activity was useless. Be careful of distractions. Now, the value of any activity can be seen in the results of the person performing the activity. It's at the top of page 26. Can you highlight that? The value of any activity can be seen in the results of the person performing it. So if a person prospects with competence, if the person is a competent prospector, and the person speaks to enough people every day, then the person will have results to show for it, correct? It's simple. If the person is incompetent, no matter how many people they speak to, they're not going to get very much by way of results. If they're highly competent as a prospector and they don't speak to enough people, they won't have results to show for it. So we've got to do the numbers, and we've got to do the numbers well. We've got to speak well. We have to prospect well. A home finder has a series of proven winning actions that lead directly to massive results. Now, all you have to do is perform your proven actions in the correct manner, and you will be a huge success. What you don't do as a home finder, any odd jobs such as cleaning the office windows, errands such as picking up the boss's kids from school, banking, going to the post office, favours for anybody unless they create a result, answering the phone, you're not a receptionist. Nothing except your winning actions or a deserved rest. That's all you do. Now, don't become weak by allowing yourself to be distracted. If you want to, you can find dozens of reasons to fail. Can you highlight that? If you want to, you can find dozens of reasons to fail. I mean, I'll give you some of the classics. There's nobody home. I prospect in the morning, but nobody's home. Okay, well, we've got a saying in sales that our job is not to find people who aren't home. Our job is to find people who are. Keep knocking on doors until you find people who are home. Don't focus on the negatives. Focus on what you can do. This is what we must do. So you do your winning actions or a deserved rest. Don't become weak by allowing yourself to be distracted. If you want to, you can find dozens of reasons to fail. All of them are distractions. The elimination of distractions is vital. And the sixth thing that we don't do as a home finder is work Sundays. Now, I want you to write in home finder, okay, so that you remember that it's the home finder I'm talking about here. The home finder doesn't work Sundays. Don't risk disturbing people on this family day, But note, once you obtain a position on the sales team, you do work Sundays, many of them in the early years, until you've paid your dues. Now, the fourth step that you really must do is join the Winners Circle. The real estate agency program has minimum training and support standards. It's essential that you're a member of the Winners Circle from the day that you commence. So your salary package includes a training benefit from which your leader will invest in the Winners Circle on your behalf. The fifth step is your winning actions to perform. These actions will lead you directly to immediate sellers and future sellers. So immediate sellers and future sellers. Now the mission is twofold: to find sellers and classify them by determining when they're selling. Find sellers and classify them by determining when they're selling. And then make sure that you're familiar with the 3x5 card system and the company's database. Enter all leads given to salespeople in the inquiry log. Have all records entered into the company's database. Don't do this yourself. Have a secretary enter the details off your 3x5 cards into the database and then return those cards to you. Keep good records on all future sellers. The contacts you make will, if you file them correctly and contact them regularly, can you highlight contacted? If filed correctly and contacted correctly, become like profit seeds from which you'll reap a bumper listing harvest. Now the second thing we have to do is make an introduction to the best salesperson to do a perfect listing presentation. Now in your first month you might confine your activities to finding sellers and giving the details to your sales controller. But as you get to know the team better, you'll start to identify who are the winners, who are the people who are producing results. And I strongly suggest that as a home finder, that you take your leads and you give the leads to the person who is most likely to turn that lead into a listing. I mean, if you think about it, the office is going to look at how many listings that were created from your leads. That is how you are going to be judged. Now, since you're a home finder, you can't go out and list these properties yourself. Somebody has to do that for you. So if my destiny, if you like, is in the hands of somebody else, wouldn't I want to make sure that that somebody else, the person that I'm handing the lead to, is the best I can possibly find? Wouldn't you? So what you do is you take the leads as you get to know the team and you hand the leads over to the team member who is most likely to turn that lead into a listing. This is very important. Now always allow the salesperson to set the appointment time with the seller, but note the lead in the officer's inquiry log highlighted in yellow. So you find out that the seller wants to sell, but you let the salesperson set the appointment for themselves. Now you enter the details in the inquiry log and you put yourself down as the listing source and note the initials of the salesperson to whom you pass the lead. Remember too to note the appointment on your weekly results report, and you'll see the results report at the end of this manual. And when the property is listed, update your weekly results report and your monthly scorecard, and you'll also see the scorecard at the back of this manual. Now, on some occasions, salespeople may ask you to locate a specific type of property to fill a request from a buyer. This is a good reason to go looking for sellers, and this excuse is even better if you take a photograph of the buyers with you for added credibility. If you highlight, this is even better if you take a photograph of the buyers with you. Look, what we've got to remember is that every typical salesperson goes out there and knocks on doors and says to sellers, oh, look, I've got a buyer who wants to buy in this street. But if you take a photograph and show the sellers the picture of the buyers, are they more likely to believe that you're serious and that you're honest and that you do have a buyer who wants to buy in the street? Evidence. It's a crucial part of professional selling. Now, qualify well and give good qualified appointments to your team members. Good qualified appointments to your team members. Never attempt to sell an appointment. Could you highlight that, please? Never attempt to sell an appointment. Your job is to find people who are selling now, or in the very near future. So the things to write in on page 31, qualify well and give good qualified appointments to your team members. Never attempt to sell an appointment. Your job is to find people who are selling now or in the very near future. Now, as I just mentioned a little bit before, we see home finders, they often want to just get appointments, so they want to get the salespeople busy. Look at me, I got you an appointment. But if the appointment is not with a person who is selling now or in the very near future, you're wasting that salesperson's time. So that is not a good thing to do. And salespeople, for any salespeople who are listening to this, I suggest to you that if a home finder gives you a lead that is not properly qualified, then call that seller up while the home finder is present and let the home finder listen to you qualify that seller so the home finder's knowledge improves. Because home finders, our job is to find people who are selling now or in the very near future, and I mean very near, like the next couple of weeks, and then give those leads to professional salespeople on the team who will turn those leads into business. Salespeople, your job is to help the home finder to become better at qualifying those people. So don't whinge about the poor quality leads. Show the home finder how to qualify properly so that the home finder improves and becomes better at qualifying leads. Does this make sense? We're a team. So I never want to hear a salesperson qualifying about the poor quality of leads, and I don't want to hear about home finders giving poor quality leads to salespeople. We have to make sure that these people are selling now or in the near future. Be sure to pass each seller appointment to the salesperson you believe is most likely to list the property for the agency. I've told you that before. Don't worry about favouring anybody. Always do best for the seller. Do what's best for the seller, and then the agency, and ultimately everybody will benefit. Now we're going to look at the sources where listings are most likely to be found. Now in real estate, there's two sorts of sources. There's solo listing sources, that is listings that are found through our own efforts. And then there's what we call the PI sources. These are listings that are generated from things such as leaflets and letters. So we have all of these sources where we've identified that sellers can be found. We're now going to start talking about prospecting. But before we talk about prospecting, let's talk about some of the consumer laws that have now been legislated in Australia. Now you have to be careful when you're prospecting. As more and more people are being bombarded by people prospecting at all hours of the day and night, and there's also a group of people who were preying on consumers. You know, they'd ring them up and they talked about them, try and get them to come along to a wealth building seminar. And then what they'd do is fleece these sellers, and these sellers would end up borrowing a whole lot of money against their properties. They'd buy properties that were well inflated in price, and then they got themselves into a lot of financial trouble. And so what the government has done is they've put in some legislation to tighten up on prospecting. They're hoping, of course, the hope is that it'll stop these crooks that are preying on unsuspecting homeowners. The other side of the coin is, however, that these laws make it very easy for an unethical seller to rort you, the salesperson. What happens in this case is, if you are sloppy with your work, you leave yourself wide open to be rorted by an unethical seller. So you just have to be careful. Now, some of the laws these laws aren't in effect in New Zealand, but they certainly have been legislated here in Australia as of the 1st of July and became fully enforced from the 1st of January this year. Now, there might be challenges for an agent, particularly when they list from a cold call or a door knock. A breach of the rules could allow the consumer to avoid the listing agreement and escape paying the agent, and the agent can be fined. So this is just some of the rules in a nutshell. Now, what you have to do is you have to be fully conversant with these rules. You and your leader and your team, you need to look at what the law calls for, because it's your responsibility to obey the law. But this is just an overview. Prospecting hours and rules. Prospecting should be done during permitted hours, not on Sundays or public holidays. Okay, not before 9 a.m. on any day, not after 5 p.m. on a Saturday, and on weekdays, not after 6 p.m. door knocking or 8 p.m. telephone calls. Okay, so that's the basic rules. The prospector should provide their name, their office name, and the purpose of the visit or call. Door knockers should also provide ID and explain that they'll leave the premises upon request if asked. Okay, now I'm just giving you the laws now. Now, we haven't written all of our scripts directly, because what we want to do is we want to show you what needs to be said. But you need to keep in mind, over and above all of that, what the laws require you to do. Any listing agreement obtained through door knocking or cold calling is called an unsolicited consumer agreement with a 10 business day cooling off period. The agent is not supposed to supply services or seek payment in that period. Okay, so I'm just giving you a bit of an overview. The listing process following a door knock or a cold call, like the prospector, the listing salesperson should provide their ID, their business card, the purpose of their visit, and explain that they'll leave on request. They should explain the 10-day business off cooling off period. The listing agreement must state the vendor's cooling off and termination rights, the agent's full contact details, and a notice that the vendor can use to terminate the agreement. So the vendor must immediately receive a copy of their signed agreement. The front page of the agreement must be dated and signed by the seller and have the following text. Important notes to the consumer: you have the right to cancel this agreement with 10 business days from and including the day after you signed or received this agreement. Details about your additional rights to cancel this agreement are set out in the information attached to this. And then there's some escape clauses as in for you, the agent. Any visiting hours are okay if you have an appointment. A listing appointment is not an unsolicited consumer agreement if the consumer initiates the first contact to sell their house, perhaps by responding to a flyer, or the agreement is negotiated at the agent's premises. Okay, so these are just some of the things to consider. Now you might think, well, gee, that just really puts the mockers on prospecting. Look, you know what? If you do the right thing, and if you're open, if you handle the listing well and you look after them, the right people are not going to come back at you. You just have to be aware of what the laws are and do your best to comply. Now we're going to do some prospecting. We're going to look at the listing sources where sellers are most likely to be found. Now in your Winning Ways manual, you'll find some of the highest yielding seller sources. Some additional sources are included in this manual. Now you should work these sources that give you the best results. Now highlight that, please. You should work the sources that give you the best results. I mean, if one listing source, you can get a listing from speaking to 100 people. And with another listing source, you can get a listing by speaking with 50 people. Which is the best source? The source with the highest yield for the lowest number of calls. Do you agree? So now think about that. Because often I've seen home finders, they make lots and lots and lots of calls to the coldest source they can find. Now for sale by owners, here's the procedure for following up for sale by owners. Find them online in the papers. So online, local papers, major papers, and the signs you see in your area. Now these really are a goldmine, having these for sale, looking out for these for sale by owners. Set up a blue book. Set up a blue book. Now you cut out each ad and you paste it on a page with plenty of room to jot notes. So what you do is you cut out the ad, you paste it into the book, and plenty of room to the right-hand side of the ad to jot down notes. Leave a little bit of space underneath and draw a line. Then you put the next ad. You might have 3 or 4 ads per page. Now, we want to put these all in a book. I know that we can put them in computer records and spit them all out, but there's nothing better than having all of the original ad, the whole thing stuck into a book and be able to go back through some of these old ads. They're a goldmine for listings and sales. Put all the for sale by owners into a blue book, including those you find online. Now, while online searches are good, it's always better to have all for sale by owners in one place in your blue book. So on page 33, the third thing we have to do is call all sellers after 9 a.m. Make sure you're in the office early on the days when the real estate section is featured in the newspapers. Now, when you first call, the aim is to obtain the seller name or names and the address of the property they're selling. Hi, I saw your ad in the Herald. Are you the person I should be speaking with about the property? So you come straight out and you say who you are. The next thing you do is when you have the owner on the line, introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Gary. I'm from XYZ Real Estate. Okay, so introduce yourself. Now, often we don't introduce ourselves straight away when we're first prospecting. Okay, so when you first start with somebody, under normal circumstances, if you start and you come straight out and you say, my name is from XYZ Real Estate, generally what happens, it throws up the barriers. Uh-oh, a salesperson, how do I get rid of them? Now, we do have to identify ourselves, but is it better to identify ourselves after we're engaged in a little bit of a conversation than to say something which will throw the barriers up before? Of course. But with a sale by owner, they'll get very annoyed if you start talking to them and they think you're a buyer and then you later identify yourself as an agent. And I've got to say, I would too. So you just say, hi, I saw your ad in the Herald. Are you the person I should be speaking to about the property? Well, yes, I am. Well, look, thanks for your time. Look, my name's Gary. I'm a real estate agent from XYZ Real Estate. Okay, so you introduce yourself immediately. Would you mind if I asked you a quick question? Now, they might just jump in. If you pause after you say, my name's Gary from XYZ Real Estate, and you pause, I don't want any agents. So in polite conversation, when you pause, that opens the conversation up for them to come in. So if you don't want them to come in, then don't pause. And anywhere where you see do not pause, that's the reason why. Thanks for your time. My name's Gary from XYZ Real Estate. Would you mind if I asked you a quick question? Look, I'm just wondering whether if for some reason you get busy and don't have time to continue with private selling, whether further down the track you consider giving your property to a good agent to sell. In the future I'm talking about. No, well, I want to sell it myself. Yeah, I know, but often now the conversation has started to open up. No, well, I want to sell it myself. Yeah, but what we often find is that people that are selling privately, what we often find with them is that they get really busy. Perhaps buyers stand them up. They get a bit sick of it. And then they start, some of them sell, but some of them also think about appointing an agent. So I'm just wondering if further down the track that you run out of time and you haven't got the time to do this, or it starts to annoy you, being stood up by buyers and things like this, whether further down the track you might consider appointing a real estate agent. Okay, I certainly think you should try for yourself now, but further down the track, would you consider a good agent if this doesn't work for you? It's a nice, non-threatening opener that will encourage a short, polite conversation. Now you lead into another question. May I ask what led you to decide having a go at selling privately? I think it's a good idea to have a go, but what made you decide to do it? After the seller replies, lead to your next question. I like your ad. Have you had much response? Now it's time for you to end the conversation. What you want to do is you want to stop the conversation and you make the suggestion to get off the line rather than them say, oh, listen, I might have buyers calling, you've got to get off the line. So you end the conversation. Look, I appreciate your time and courtesy. I'd better get off the line. You don't want to miss any callers. But would you mind if I sent you a business card? And since you've been so nice to me, a little book that might help you sell privately? Where should I send the book and the card? By the way, what's your name? Okay, thanks, John. Look, I'll get this off to you today. Listen, is this address the property that you're selling? Oh, well, it's not? Okay, so whereabouts is the place? Look, I promise I won't drive you mad. Just wouldn't mind driving by and having a look one day when I'm out there. Okay, I appreciate your time. Good luck with the buyers. Now, you send the for sale by owner a copy of how to get the highest price for your property and the crafts of negotiation booklets, together with a thank you note and your business card with thank you written on it. So you send them a nice little packet. Do you know, I often hear leaders and salespeople, on one hand, they complain about what great glossy-looking material their competitors have, and then we provide them with great glossy-looking material, and then they get stingy and don't want to use it. I mean, really. You know, that package that you'd send out with a craft of negotiation and how to get the highest price for your property, those two booklets would cost you under $8 to send out. Might cost you a little bit, might cost 10, say. But I tell you what, it's far cheaper than any other form of marketing that you would do. Let's get them around. Let's get them around. Let's get them out there. Now use your 3x5 card and the all-in-one card system that's explained in the Winning Ways manual. Send thank you cards or notes. Make them relevant to the conversation that you just had. As quickly as possible, get back to the for sale by owner using the offer a buyer method as explained in your Winning Ways manual. This approach will open more doors for you than the typical take approach. Offer a buyer. You know, you've got a buyer, somebody that you met while you were prospecting, looking for buyers who have properties to sell, and they say that they've been looking for a certain type of property. Introduce them to the for sale by owner. You know, especially if they're a buyer that's just started looking. You know, introduce them to the for sale by owner. And say, we haven't got a property to suit these people, so go for it. Good luck, I hope you can sell it. You know, these are the little things that make the for sale by owner think, you know, you might be all right. Call up all for sale by owners and follow up until their property is listed or sold. All right, so that's for sale by owners. That's the procedure that we use for following them up. Always be enthusiastic, and when you're prospecting with for sale by owners, never be on the back foot. Next is other agents' signs down on page 35. Other agents' signs down. Now, this is a certain way of constantly finding sellers. This source can be enormous when you follow the winning actions. Now, the procedure for success is set aside one day each month. So one day each month, you're going to drive around your area and you're going to look at every single real estate agent sign that you can find. Not your agency, but every other agency that's out there. So drive the street in your area, make a note of every for sale sign. Use a recording device to avoid accidents. So just speak into your mobile phone. They've all got recording devices these days. You drive down Smith Street, the name of your suburb. Driving down Smith Street, okay, there's a property for sale at number 21 with LJ Hooker. Drive down, okay, 44, there's a property for sale with, that's all you have to do. And so what you know is every street where there is a for sale sign. Do you know that one of the best things that a salesperson can ever get to do is to know the stock in their area? And the stock is every property that's up for sale, whether it be for sale by owner or whether it be listed with any other agent or whether it's listed with us. What's for sale in the area? And the more we know the stock, the better we're going to be further down the track. Then when you see professional salespeople, you know, somebody that's been in the area for a long time, somebody that knows the stock, they say you come in with a listing. Oh, you listed that property. Gee, that was for sale 3 years ago with such and such an agency. And they know the stock. Professionals know the stock. And the more you're out there and the more you're active in the area, the better you'll get to know the stock. Use a recording device. During non-daylight hours, make a written record of these signs. Highlight non-daylight hours. During the day, you need to speak with people. Okay, if you can't prospect on a Sunday, there's nothing to stop you from writing out your list then, is it? Okay, or at night, after hours, when it's too late to prospect, or early in the morning before you can prospect. So do you see how all of this works? There's certain hours. Daylight hours, you speak with people. Then after hours is when you do your basic administration. But never do basic administration during prime, I could be talking with people hours. On the same day next month, repeat the procedure. You'll discover that a number of the properties that were on your first list are now not on the second list, meaning that these signs have come down. Continue the procedure on the same day each month. Now, with these owners that have signs missing, You go and see these people and you ask them if they've sold their property. Tell the truth. You notice they had a for sale sign and now that sign is gone. Did you sell? Now, if the property is still for sale but not listed with another agent, ask if they'd mind whether someone from your agency came out and had a look at it. Isn't this a simple procedure? Do you know that the strike rate, the success rate on other agents' signs down is very, very high? But the reason that we don't see more listings from this source is that a lot of people don't do it because of the work required to go around the area and look at every sign in the area and see which signs have come down. So it takes a lot more effort, but the calls, the listings per call yield is very, very, very high. A great number of listings for a low number of people spoken to. But you put in the effort at the front end, driving around seeing where all the signs are, driving around the next month and see which signs have come down. But when you've got those names of those people whose signs have come down, it is a very, very good source. It's just a little effort to do. And the reason that, as I said, that we don't see a lot of listings that come from this source is because it requires effort, and most people will shun anything that requires a bit of hard work. But it's a great source if you get into it. So if the property is still for sale but not listed with another agent, ask if they'd mind if somebody from your agency came to have a look at it. Your aim is to make a time for one of your team to go and see the owner. So early next week. Now when I say make a time, I mean a general time. Like so early next week, if I can get somebody to come out and see you, good, somebody from our agency will be in touch with you and they'll make a time with you. Then you give the lead to a salesperson. The salesperson narrows the time down to something that suits the sellers and the salesperson. Now, of course, like all listing sources, if you want to get great results consistently from all of these sources, you can't be hit and miss. You have to make sure that this becomes a permanent habit. A permanent habit. Now, under no circumstances, under absolutely no circumstances, should you approach the owner of a property where there's a sign erected on it if this is how you found the property. So I saw another agent's sign, go and knock on the door. That, to me, is something that you should be dismissed for. Okay? We do not approach other agents' signs knowingly. Sometimes you might make a phone call and you find that they're listed with somebody. Okay, it's an accident. You say to them, I'm really sorry, I didn't know you were listed. I will leave you alone. Okay? I'll call you in a few months. When does the listing expire? Well, I'll call you in a couple of months perhaps. But I'm sorry, I won't bother you now. And you just back off. Okay? So anyone can make a mistake, but we never knowingly approach another agent's sign. So sometimes when using other sources, you will be unable to avoid contacting other agents' clients. In these cases, simply make a note of when the other agent's agreement expires, wish the seller well, and send a polite thank you. Do nothing else until the other agent is no longer involved or until the seller contacts you, whichever comes first. You can find enough sellers without using this weak, pathetic method of knocking on doors of properties with an agent's sign. You know, I've always found this, there's something really sleazy about this kind of behaviour. Somebody signs an agreement with somebody. And it doesn't matter whether you like that person or not, but they've signed an agreement. In other words, they've given somebody their word that they'll let them try and sell their house. And then somebody else comes along and tries to get them to break their word. I think there's something morally wrong with that. You know, if somebody's given their word, then they should honour their agreement. That's the end of the story. That's it. There's no way that we should ever try and talk somebody out of breaking, or there's no way we should ever try and talk somebody into breaking their word. It just should never happen. Now, over on page 37, online data down. Online data down. Now, some third-party websites are a good source of withdrawn properties, but you have to do a little detective work. Now, search sites such as realestate.com.au and RP Data and look for those properties that were listed, but properties that have not been advertised for 2 months or more. Next, you cross-check to see if these properties have been sold. So this is online data down. So if you look at a sheet from RP Data, what does it tell you? It tells you the price, publication within the last 24 weeks. So it gives you this basic information. Now, as privacy laws tighten up, you're getting less and less information. And I've got to say that for me, this has been terrific. You see, you could see that you might see that the property hasn't been advertised in the last 10, 15, 20 weeks. But if you had the seller's name and phone number and you rang them up, you could find that they're still listed with that agency, but the advertising money, for example, has run out. You could find that out, couldn't you? So you could be actually approaching another agent's sign without knowing it. The second thing is if you're in, for example, Queensland, by phoning those people, you could be in breach of the law, in that you could be using a database that came directly or indirectly from a government database. So you could be breaking the law, and there's potential in Queensland especially to do that. But if you go out and see them face to face, then you're not breaking any law, are you? Are you? And if you go out and you see them and you see that there's another agent's sign on it, you don't go any further. So online data down is a very, very good source, and provided you use it the right way, that is, you obey the law, both moral laws and legal laws. Morally, that you don't jump another agent's sign because you've seen the property, it's listed, right, I won't go any further. And then you don't break the law in Queensland, for example, by using data that could have come in directly from a government database. But if you see that the property was listed, you see that the property hasn't been advertised for a while, and you drive out there, and when you're driving past you see that the property is no longer has an agent's sign on it, and you go and knock on the door, then you're okay. Correct? So it's a very, very good source of listings. Online data down. Properties that were listed but not advertised for some time may be withdrawn. And as I say, you've got to be sure that they're no longer for sale with another agent before contacting the owners, and the only way to know for sure is to visit in person. Can you highlight that? Treat these properties in the same way as you would other agents' signs down. Add these properties to your other agents' signs down list. Drive by each property and see if they've got another agent's sign displayed. Visit those properties with no sign. I think it's a great source. It's a beauty. Next is to let by owners and garage sales. Now, a similar set of rule applies to these sources as with for sale by owners. Your approach need not be complicated. Garage sales. Hi, I saw you having a garage sale. By any chance, are you having this sale because you're thinking about selling the house? Nice big grin. That's all you've got to say. You know, what I love is just come out and say what you want to say. Come out and ask for what you want. Hi, I saw you having a garage sale. Does this mean you're selling the house? Even simpler. Big smile. Now look, if you go there in the middle of the day, right, and they've got people all over the place, and they're talking with people and they're selling stuff, and you go up in the middle of all that, well, they're not going to be conducive to talking to you, are they? So just apply a little bit of common sense. Go early. Go early. It'll only be you and the dealers. Now, next is to let by owners. TLBO, to let by owners. I saw you're advertising a property for rent. Are you the person I should speak with? Oh, thank you. My name is Gary. I'm from XYZ Real Estate. Look, often people who advertise properties for rent, sometimes they prefer to sell. By any chance, have you considered selling this property instead of renting it? Again, you come out and ask for what you want. Not hard, is it? Now, you must establish a book for each source. Be sure that all ads, including online ads, are placed in this book and that all owners are contacted quickly and constantly. Now, the next is referrals. Now, referrals can be a lot of fun and very satisfying. Pay attention to the creating sales section in your Winning Ways manual. The salesperson that asks receives business. Would you highlight that? We've got to make referral asking a habit. When was the last time you think about it? How many people would you have spoken to in the last 2 weeks? It would be a considerable number, wouldn't it? It might be 150, it might be 200 people. Okay, now, next question is, how many of those did you ask if they have a property to sell or know somebody who does? And the answer is probably considerably less than 200, or however many you spoke to. You'd agree with that? Okay, so we've got to make this a habit. Oh yeah, I'm in real estate. Are you selling anything at the moment? Do you know anybody who is? Just come out and ask. And the more of a habit that becomes, the more listings that you'll get from referrals. The salesperson that asks receives the business. When going through the inquiry log, ask the people with whom you're speaking if they know of anybody who is selling or buying real estate. Asking, constantly asking. Can you highlight the 2 words there in bold? Constantly asking for referrals is a winning habit. Resolve to ask at least 4 people a day if they know anybody who is selling or buying real estate anywhere. Anywhere. Do they know of anyone? And the more you ask, the more they're likely to remember. Buyers and inquiry log is the next one. In the office's inquiry log, there are 2 types of people, buyers and sellers. Now, all people who have contacted the office about selling their property should be highlighted in yellow. Now, if you're a home finder, don't contact these people. They'll already be in the hands of salespeople on your team. Now, those not highlighted in yellow are buyers. Your job is to telephone those with local phone numbers and ask them how they're going in their quest for a search for a property. You should also ask if they've got a property to sell. Now, arrange for a team member to make a time and visit those buyers who need to sell first in order to buy. Now, here is a trap right here for home finders. The client says, well, yeah, but you know what, we want to find something first. So the home finder decides that right now my trial is finished. Right now I'm no longer a home finder. I'm going to get into sales. And they make the number one mistake that the most amateur of salespeople make, which is what? Try to what? Sell on the telephone. Correct? That's what they try and do. And so what they do is, oh no, well look, you really shouldn't do that. And what they then do is they try and sell the buyers on doing it another way, and then they try and do it over the phone. What you have to remember is you are a home finder. You are not in sales yet. Okay, or you're not in full sales as a salesperson. You certainly are involved in sales, but you are not a salesperson yet. That is not your job description. We never use the telephone to sell. We only use the telephone to sell an appointment. So when you get somebody that says, oh yeah, but no, look, we're not going to sell unless we buy something first, and you say, well, you know what, that might be okay, but would you like to, how about I get somebody to call out and see you and discuss a couple of options that you've got, options that you might know that you've got. How about you let me get somebody to come out and see you? Okay, so don't try and sell them on the fact that that's not a good idea. Sell them on the fact that you're going to send somebody out to help them explore their options. Get the appointment for a salesperson and let the salesperson sell them on listing first before they buy. Just get the appointment. That's the only thing that you sell for, that you're there to sell, is an appointment. So please just remember, the more you learn about sales as a home finder, the more tempting it will be for you to step over and cross the line and go and start selling things that you shouldn't. Okay, we see receptionists do it sometimes. I've seen the financial controller of companies enter into areas that should be in the salespeople's hands. They mustn't do it. Just stay at what you are good at. Sell an appointment. Get a salesperson in. Let the salesperson do the job. So, oh no, well, we're not going to sell. We're not going to list until we find something first. Well, you know, that might be one way to do it, but it wouldn't hurt you to talk to one of our consultants and see what your options are. How about I get somebody to come out and see you? There's no obligation. You won't be put under any pressure. When are you available? Early in the week, okay? Good, I'll get somebody to contact you. That's it. And then you explain that to the salesperson. Now, you've got to explain to the salesperson, look, you might have a bit of work to do. You know, these people are adamant that they're not going to put their property on the market, but they've got a property to sell, and they have to sell in order to buy. So, out you go. Let's see what you can do. And let's leave that to the salesperson to sell that. You know, I wouldn't mind being tipped into a lead like that, would you? I wouldn't mind knowing. I wouldn't mind that. You know, they've got a house to sell. They want to buy again. Okay, all I have to do is convince them to do it in a different order. Yep, thanks for that. Really appreciate the lead. And salespeople listening to this, please, when a home finder gives you a lead, would you say thank you? Okay, prospecting can be day in and day out, can be a daunting task for anybody. And one of the number 21 of the 21 winning qualities is gratitude. You know, somebody's handed you a lead. Would you let them know how much you appreciate it? Over at the top of page 40 is businesses for sale. Businesses for sale. People who are selling their businesses often plan to sell their property as well. Now, telephone those who have advertised their businesses for sale and you'll find listings. Keep it simple. Introduce yourself and say, I saw you're advertising a business. By any chance are you selling a property along with it? I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to sell their business? They're going to sell their house? They're going to move somewhere else? Okay, so let's ask. Let's ask. General classifieds. Now, advertisements for pets, especially those that are free to a good home. Can you highlight that? Pets free to a good home could indicate that somebody has to move. You know, they're in a house, now they've got to move to an apartment and they can't take their pet. Free to a good home could indicate that they're selling. Plus, all other kinds of general classified advertising can lead you to sellers. Many sellers want to declutter their properties before going onto the market. Treat these people in the same way as you would garage sales. You know, I saw you've got a lounge for sale. Are you clearing out some furniture so you can declutter the house so that you can sell it? Just ask the question. You know, I see that you've got a dog for sale. Look, I'm just wondering, does this mean that you're relocating, that you're moving, that you're selling your house? Just ask the question. So just always remember, of course, a lot of the times, something like free to a good home, they're giving up the pet. Be very, very tactful. Okay? Don't sort of make it as though giving away the dog is a little thing. Especially if you don't own dogs, just be very, very tactful, be very careful. Oh, so we're selling here, we're moving to an apartment and we can't keep the dog. Oh, gee, that must be hard for you, is it? Well, yeah, when I know we've got to do it. And you just show a little bit of compassion and then say, so what are you doing? You're selling? And then they say, well, yeah, we are. Beautiful. How'd you go? Make the appointment. Skips is another one. Dumpsters. A skip outside a property could indicate a renovation or a clean-up to prepare a property for sale. Go and ask. Treat them in the same way that you would a garage sale. And I know you want to get in the skip And I know you want to rummage around and find things, but it's not a good look for a professional. Do that at night. You know, but just go and say, look, I saw you just got to skip out the front. Are you tidying up, getting ready to sell by any chance? I'm just asking, the reason I'm asking is I'm a local real estate agent. Just ask the question. These are really good ways to prospect. They're just nice, light and easy. So remember, skips, dumpsters, go and ask.